The Jewish community in South Africa is commemorating a year since the deadly October attacks by Hamas in Tel Aviv. 1,200 Israelis were killed in that assault, which sparked an onslaught in which 40,000 Palestinians have been killed as Israel retaliated. SABC News reporter Khayelihle Khumalo is watching developments here at home, joining us now live from Houghton in Johannesburg. And Khayelihle, there's been such a charged debate, at least if social media is anything to go by, about what to make of what's taken place in the year gone by. But no matter where you stand on that spectrum, this is certainly a historic day.
Well, by all accounts, and especially because it is a very poignant moment where we're positioned here in Houghton in Johannesburg. Is a garden here that has been set up, and the photos of the people who are still kidnapped, but also just it's a day to reflect on those very horrendous events where so many people were killed. One of the very deadly attacks. I mean, you go back to 6/29 on the fateful day when the killings and the atrocities were committed in Israel, really just showing a very serious issue at hand. So it's a day really to ponder about these events, but also an unconditional call for release of those who are still being held hostage. But to help us to really reflect on the significance of the day, we're joined by Wendy Kahn, the National Director from the South African Jewish Board of Deputies. So by all accounts, Wendy, one can't help but look at the emotions around in this particular setting where we are here in Houghton as you reflect on the day.
Yeah. I think you've seen, Kaya, people walking out of this exhibit with tears in their eyes, very emotional. It's a day when we are remembering that horrific atrocity that started this war where there has been so much suffering both in Israel and in Gaza. A war, such a needless war. And we can't forget what happened on that 7 October when Hamas came. They parachuted in, they ran in, they broke down barriers. They went into the kibbutzim and they murdered children in their beds. They burnt families. There are pictures of families that were burnt together. The cruelty was horrific. They went to the Nova Festival where young people were just and singing and having a good time, and they raped those women and they sexually abused. See here, the United Nations has a report on it. You'll see some of that. But here we're standing, there's 101 trees next to you with a photograph on each one. There are still 101 hostages who are being kept by Hamas in tunnels in the most horrific conditions. And we know from the hostages that have been released in the prisoner swap that they have told of the rape, and they've told of the sexual abuse, and they've told of the fact that they couldn't breathe in the tunnels and how they were being kept. And we don't know where these hostages are now. On my T-shirt here I've got little Kfir Bibas. Kfir was 9 months old when he was taken hostage. His brother was 4 years old. And now he spent a year of his life, his little life, in captivity. Do we know if he's alive? Do we know what conditions he's being kept in? These are things that keep us all up at night. And I think that this has given us a chance as a community to grieve, and I'm hoping that you'll see some of the exhibits here, which our communal organisations have put together. It's been a very important experience for us. But I think also we mustn't forget that South African jury have also been treated in the most appalling way. We've seen anti-Semitism last year go up 630%. We've had intimidation. We've had threats on Jewish businesses. It's been a very tough year for South African jury.
Wendy, the United Nations Secretary General said with these events, a lot of people were scarred and saying the unspeakable crimes that were committed. Let's look at what countries like South Africa can do. We know that South Africa has gone to the International Court of Justice, but what can be done so that we see the coexistence, the two-state solution, Israel and Palestine?
Living side by side, absolutely, with secure borders, and that's the point. I think that our country really could have made a difference. They've got a relationship with Hamas. We saw the ANC welcoming Hamas into this country. We saw the Minister of International Relations phoning and expressing support to Hamas. We've seen that. We know there's the relation. Why didn't they reach out and get the hostages, all these hostages released on the 7th or the 8th of October? That would have ended so much bloodshed, so much unnecessarily death and suffering of people in both countries. Why could our country not have put those efforts into changing things then? Can you imagine the number of lives that would have been saved?
And I would imagine also, when you do echo the very same sentiments, calling for the permanent ceasefire, calling for peace, essentially, because to all intents and purposes, the suffering, that is the untold suffering really caused by the war, is utterly untenable, whether you're looking at the numbers that they talk about in Gaza, but also the escalation of the conflict. Yeah. Now Lebanon, now Iran has entered into the fray.
Well, Israel at the moment is being pursued on 7 borders by 7 countries. It's a very scary place, as you can imagine. A few days ago, the entire Israel was sitting in bomb shelters when the Iranians were sending hundreds of missiles into Israel. It's a scary place to be. But a ceasefire can't come about until the hostages are released. No government, every government in the world has got a responsibility to its citizens to bring them back home. And that is one of the key areas that needs to be integral in terms of that ceasefire. And also there needs to be a level of security. That's not South Africa, that Israel makes sure that there is not another October 7. That's critical, and I think South Africa, it's such a pity that they chose sides, that they didn't do what they always do when they, their international relations policies, and that is to bring sides together to try and find some kind of outcome. But that's not what they did. There's just such pain when we saw 6 hostages a few weeks ago being executed by Hamas, executed in cold blood. Did the South African government come out and condemn that? No. It seems that condemnations only go one way.
Before we let you go, Wendy, once again, take us through to the importance of this site. I mean, it's almost like a very sacred space where the emotions are quite raw, and you can really tell that it's a very emotionally charged space.
Yeah, it really is. In Israel, in Tel Aviv, there is a square called Hostage Square, and it's a very organic kind of memorial that Israelis have come to. They've put up different displays, different exhibitions, different memories. Some of it's somebody will just come and put up a T-shirt to remember a loved one, and we've tried to model this on Hostage Square. We're calling it October 7 Square. And all of our communal organizations have created displays here that share an aspect that they feel very passionately about. So there's an exhibition here by the Union of Jewish Women and an organization called Kulenu, where they look at the sexual violence that happened on October 7. We have Sukkot. A sukkah is a temporary, it happened, October 7 happened on our holy day of Sukkot. And we've still got those tabernacles which are up, remembering some of the kibbutzim that were virtually decimated. Kibbutz Be'eri and Kibbutz Nir Oz. We've got, there are just so many different displays, and I'm hoping to take you through some of them to remember. We've also got a display here of the South Africans. There were South Africans that were killed on the 7th of October. There were South Africans that were taken in as hostages. We want to memorialize them. Of course, our government at the time never even went to their families to hold their families. A granny who went to visit her newborn grandchild and was murdered. Those are the kind of stories that South African jury are going to be reflecting on today.
Wendy, thank you so much indeed for that. So obviously quite a very important day here, Ayanda. So with that, back to you in studio.